Hey, this is Notser, and this is my definitive commander skill guide for 2021. I have a reputation for releasing my commander build and equipment with videos in the past, and that was very helpful, but it is all irrelevant now. You know, my wrong view on IFHE back in the day is irrelevant, and still wrong. My secondary cruiser build was a troll, but is still wrong. My view on the lack of utility with incoming fire alert is completely wrong. My view that priority target is the absolute best skill in the game and everyone should take it is also completely wrong. So, as I've stated, please do not look at any other video other than this one if you are trying to be the best possible ships player in 2021, because I think the builds that I'm going to showcase, plus we're going to have some B-reel to get the point across on some of the skills, because I know it's not completely obvious on how to use them. Obviously, others it is completely obvious. We're going to hopefully have some converts that will watch this, adopt this, and they themselves will improve their gameplay, because I certainly have with this, these skills, and using it in my regular play each and every day. So we're going to go through each class, showcase their skills, talk about it, and at the end of the video, hopefully you'll be better informed. And honestly, if you are attempting to deal with this, it will also clue you in on, what to look for when approaching or dealing with someone who might be making use of this. So we're going to start with my favorite class in the game, the Destroyer. The DD, as you will. This is the ship class that is the most effective, the most powerful, absolutely wins more games than any other class in the game, and is the reason why rank is so easy for me, because I make an effort to play them very well. So let's take a look at the build. Now, it's going to be pretty easy for me to express all of my DD builds, because you're looking at all of my DD builds. Quite literally, this is the build that I use on all of my DDs. I'm not kidding. This is the only build that I use. And there's a reason for that. And obviously I'll tell you. So, the first skill that I recommend you take, incoming fire alert. That skill that probably 3 years ago I said was completely useless, could not be further from the truth. It is one of the most useful skills in the game. It's transformative because it enables a technique that I like to call active dodging. What it does is it warns you when gunfire is incoming outside of 4.5 kilometers. It's useless inside 4.5 because there's not enough time to react. But, as our voice cracks, outside of 4.5, there is more than enough time to leverage this to increase the potential damage that you can sustain without dying. So what I like to do with incoming fire alert is the following. I will be headed in a direction, unbroken momentum, maybe at full speed, half speed, doesn't matter what speed. And the moment I see incoming fire alert on the screen, and you should be seeing this in B-reel, I will change my direction and my speed. In doing so, I will throw off the shot, because the lead that the player had calculated was assuming that I was going at full speed, or I was going in the direction that I was going prior to them pulling the trigger. The second they pull the trigger is the second the incoming fire alert shows on your screen, and from that moment to the time that the shell arrives is the window of time that you need to perform the active dodge. Now, for me, active dodging best works when you cut your throttle. If I'm going full speed, I pull it all the way down, and I turn away or towards wherever I happen to be. A change in direction. You do not want to perform this before the enemy fires their gun, though, because it's not going to be as beneficial as it would be if the enemy had fired their gun and then you reacted. But this is an amazing skill, because this will increase the potential damage that you can sustain by tenfold. I guarantee it, if you make use of the active dodge. The next skill is Last Stand. Now, this is a mainstay, always has been, always will be for DDs. This allows you to still have engine and steering gears, even if they're knocked out, they won't become fully incapacitated. Only partially. So you can still maneuver and you can still have speed. It's a great skill for obvious reasons, and it allows you to not have to use DCP to maintain your maneuverability. Highly recommend this. The next skill, Survivability Expert. This allows the DD to have obviously higher potential health pool than they would normally have. It is based on the tier, so the higher the tier, the greater the value. Take this always and forever on a DD, because what this will allow you to do is to sustain more damage, and leveraging incoming fire alert will multiply it even more, because every hit point worth of damage that the player has to land on you will be that much harder to take off using those in concert. The next skill, I would recommend Concealment Expert, and the DD is the Concealment Expert for the team. They want to remain undetected so that they can stealth torpedo, stealth spot, or even take the objective. They can place themselves in areas of the map safely without being detected, and then they can lob shells over islands or in smoke or however you want to do it. Concealment is one of the best traits of DDs. The other 4-point skill, and yes, I just went all the way this way, so I'm up to 10 points. The next 4 points goes directly to radiolocation. I don't waste time getting a 3-point or a 1-point. No, I save 4 points up to radiolocation. Radiolocation is an amazing hunting skill for DDs and cruisers. This just gives you an alert to the closest target's bearing. Now, you can use this in many different ways. Obviously, if it's obvious that the target is right there in front of you and it points directly to it, there's no surprise. But radiolocation can also be used to limit the number of potential opponent or ambushes that may or may not come towards you. There's not going to be a 100% surprise attack because you will always see the closest enemy to your position. This works on DDs, in smoke, behind islands, cruisers, battleships, aircraft carriers. It even works on submarines when they are at surface, periscope, and operational depth. The only depth that radiolocation does not detect a submarine is at maximum depth. So you can quite easily discern that if you are capturing an objective and all the enemy DDs are off on another side of the map and there's only one submarine and he happens to be somewhere around you, your radiolocation is pointing to, but then all of a sudden it switches quickly, he has gone to maximum depth. That is the only depth that he can go to that makes him immune to radiolocation. Now that we're 14 points in, we've got a couple more skills to take. The next skill that I highly recommend is Superintendent. Now, the reason I say Superintendent is because it allows you to be aggressive from minute one. Consumables are your best tool for getting kills and winning the game. They allow you to take objectives, they allow you to get out of trouble, they allow you to harass, they allow you to assassin. Depending on the class of ship, you will get different consumables, but it all remains the same. Taking Superintendent allows you to stay aggressive and to always have a consumable in your back pocket that you can use to counter the enemy in any given, situation. And you've probably seen some B-reel of different situations. The 52 rushing the objective. He can aggressively use hydro. As an opener, he can aggressively smoke because he will have an extra smoke and hydro for later. You don't want to get ambushed accidentally. Before I invested in Superintendent, I was trying to cut corners, and honestly, you don't need to cut corners. You just need to play straight up, and using a consumable at the beginning is a great way of staying aggressive. The other skill that I recommend is Adrenaline Rush. Adrenaline Rush is a skill that encourages you to take damage. When you take damage, you will convert it directly into your offensive capabilities. So any damage that you take will benefit you offensively. Because we have leveraged so much defensive skills, we're obviously going to take a long time to die, so we'll have more time to benefit from Adrenaline Rush. The final skill that I would take is Preventative Maintenance. Preventative Maintenance prevents your main turret, your torpedo tubes, your steering gears, and your engine from being incapacitated. Obviously, this is good. Keeping your torpedo tubes from being incapacitated allows you to stay aggressive. This skill is more valuable than having faster torpedo speed, faster torpedo reload, or faster gun reload, because it will prevent the guns or the torpedoes from ever being incapacitated. And if you've ever been in a state of torpedo reloading, having your torpedo tube get incapacitated is the worst feeling. And many of you know what I'm talking about. This will help prevent that so you can better leverage the skills that you have. Now, I'm going to just showcase all the different examples of the ships that I play this with, and you'll see very quickly, I see a trend, Notser. Even this one. Don't play that. Play this. I'm not kidding. This is much better. My experience says this is going to allow you to last longer, be more effective around the map, and still be threatening. But as you can see, even this still have old builds. I still don't have every single ship built the way I would recommend it, because I just have too many ships. But again, definitely recommend you take advantage of this. Here's my 52 with the extra consumables. And, you know, for something like the Daring as well, it makes perfect sense to do this as well, because look at all the consumables you have. I can always have Hydra up. I can have that extra smoke cloud. I can have the extra heal. It is a great, great build path to go for every single DD, because it works on every single DD, because the principle is making yourself the hardest ship in the match to kill, allowing your skills consumable and your guns and torpedoes to do the talking for you, rather than trying to leverage some situationally activated skills or going all in on offense and not getting very much for it. This is giving you sort of transformative abilities: radiolocation, incoming fire alert, last stand, preventative, adrenaline rush, even concealment. It just opens up so many play possibilities that it's hard to ignore. And it will work on every single DD. I have pretty much verified that every tier will benefit from this exact build. Now, let's talk about the cruiser. Because the cruiser is probably the class that most of you play that has the worst commander skill tree. And the reason why the cruiser has such a bad commander skill tree, I think, is because some of the skills that it has are very important, but not always. Now, I'm going to use the Minotaur as my example because I just love looking at Hot Rod's skin, and I had a monster game in this. Hopefully I'll release that video. Oh, and one thing I want to just reiterate real fast. The differences between them on the commander skill, there's no difference in build. For the equipment, though, you want to make sure that you have things like propulsion mod 1 for DDs instead of steering or depth or damage. This allows you to play chicken around an island and accelerate and deaccelerate back and forth, or stay inside of objectives or stay inside of smoke. You know, basically enables you to do your job better. All the other things are pretty obvious. If for whatever reason there isn't something that you can enhance or want to enhance, take engine room protection. Now, depending on the type of ship, you will either take torpedo reload, or torpedo focused equipment, or gun focused equipment. For obviously the Shimakaze, get the torpedo focused equipment, both in slot 3 and slot 6. For something like the gearing, I go for a brawler build. Take the aiming system mod 1 and the gun reload mod 1. Now, you'll notice that I have the unique upgrade. I take it in the gearing to enable it to be sort of a brawler assassin. I have the best concealment in the game next to the Shima, and I can very easily run around the map and surprise people with how much damage output. And this applies to, you know, all the ships that you see. Hell, the one exception I might say is the Kaaba, because the rudder shift is so horrible, but it's going away. But quite literally, every single DD in the game, you want to take propulsion mod 1. If you have, you know, hydroacoustic, you can definitely leverage the duration, because that will make it even more impactful. And go from there. There really isn't much more to it. If you use your guns more frequently, go gun. If you use your torpedoes more frequently, go torpedo. Now, let's go to cruiser. Sorry about that little aside. So, for the cruiser, we're going to use the Minotaur. Now, the Minotaur is a really fun, light cruiser. And let's take a look at the build. This is the build that I currently run on every single cruiser. And for pretty much the same reasons. Incoming fire alert is a transformative skill. This skill is the single greatest skill in the game, because it's 1 point and it allows you to active dodge. Without this, you can't active dodge because you don't have other than visual contact confirmation that they fired. What if they're on the other side of the island? What if you're not looking at them as they're firing? This will give you sort of a free, easy alert. If you're not paying attention, it will always be in the top right-hand corner of your screen, just before you get up to your ribbons, sort of in the center, top right. It's always there, even if you're not looking directly at the enemy. So it's a great, great, great early warning sign. The next skill that I recommend, and this is for a couple reasons, is the focus fire training skill. The priority sector AA damage increase is the key here. That is the most beneficial trait here, because priority sector is a % increase to your AA defense. If you use this coupled with focus fire training, you will have a even higher percentage AA damage output for the duration of priority sector. The only requirement being that you focus your camera at the direction that the aircraft is incoming. Now, you'll notice that it also helps with airstrike armament reloading, which is code for anti-submarine, or Dutch cruisers as well would benefit from this. It's a very useful skill for both anti-CV and anti-submarine, all in a 2-point. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the most impactful skill. Yes, priority target does tell you the number of people targeting you. But you know what else tells you the number of people targeting you? The number of people firing at you. So instead of spending 2 points for this and not spending 1 point for this, you can spend 1 point for incoming fire alert to use it to actively dodge, and you can watch as the 3 or 4 ships fire on the position they believed you were going to be, but miss completely. The next skill that I recommend for a cruiser to take is Superintendent. Goes without saying that the cruiser of all classes has the most consumables to make use of, the most impactful consumables as well. Radar, especially at high tier, you get a heal, which is very helpful. You get either hydroacoustic or defensive AA, or, you know, a combination of those two. It is absolutely vitally important that you make use of your consumables to win matchups. And radar is one of those skills that, I mean, it's pretty obvious that it's really good. And obviously for the Minotaur, I go a radar build because I really enjoy being super dominant with the radar minnow. Next skill I recommend, Concealment Expert. Concealment Expert is going to help you stay concealed longer before you are first encountered. For something like the Minotaur, it combos very well with radar because for the Minotaur, you will be able to radar the ship before they even see you, which is really powerful. It's one of the few ship cruisers in the game that you can still do that, but it remains true for all the other ones as well. It just reduces the amount of time that the player is warned of your presence before you can make use of radar. It's a great combo for that. It allows you to move around the map safer, and it obviously allows you to be more aggressive because you can get in more advantageous positions. The next skill I recommend is, yes, radiolocation, because radiolocation is just as transformative as it was for the DD. This allows you to spot and hunt every single ship type in the game. And just as I described for DDs, radiolocation will tell you the submarine's location if he is at surface, periscope, or operational. The only depth that he is immune, again, is maximum. And this is one of those skills that is probably the reason why the cruiser commander skill tree is so weak, because it has access to radiolocation. So does the DD, but that's it. No other class in the game has this. So definitely encourage you to take it. The other skill that I really like is a defense and anti-submarine weaponry expert. This obviously enhances your ability to fight both the aircraft carrier and also fight submarines, which you will be doing pretty often. It enhances the depth charge damage. It enhances your airstrike depth charge damage. It enhances your AA and your flak bursts. It makes it all more impactful so that you yourself as a cruiser can stay more dominant, taking out the aircraft from spotting you so you can stay hidden, or taking out the submarine that is hounding other classes. The submarine is actually very strong against cruisers and DDs because the homing will stay on the ship for longer, unlike the battleship where it is deactivated at 2.1 kilometers. So you don't want to be weak against submarines because they're already very strong against you. So this plus radiolocation work very well in tandem to hunt subs or to prevent them from hunting you. The final skill that I recommend you taking is Adrenaline Rush, because you're going to take damage, and every point of damage that you take, this will enhance your ability to reload, main battery torpedoes, airstrike, secondary, continuous AA, all of them. This is a fantastic 3-point skill, and highly encourage you to do it, to take it. Now, I haven't updated all of my cruiser build, but this is what I am taking on all of my cruisers. Now, this is an old build. Obviously, Grease the Gears is great. Obviously, Gunfeeder is fantastic. But those are really the only two that are good. The other 2-point skill that, if you have a 21-point commander, leaves a lot to be desired. You know, Priority Target is okay. Demolition Expert is okay. But they're not as good as taking these skills together. They enable the cruiser to stay longer, be more effective, and obviously hunt easier. And this will apply at all tiers. Every single tier can active dodge. You don't need to have a heal to increase your potential damage that you are able to sustain before you die. Incoming Fire Alert is doing that for you. And yes, oh, that's not what they recommend. Yeah, but look at what they recommend on some of these classes. It's just not that good. It's just not that good. It really isn't. The next class that we're going to talk about is the Battleship. The Battleship is a class that I love dearly. Oh, before I do that, let's just make sure you guys are aware of the equipment build. Now, the equipment build, obviously, there's a little bit more of a uniqueness flavor to it. If you're not using radar, for example, on the Minotaur, well, extending the duration of radar probably is not very useful. But if you are, it's the best thing that you can use. Main gun accuracy, highly recommended for cruisers. Honestly, there really isn't another option here. There really isn't. I take steering gears mod 1. This allows you to active dodge better. Unlike the DDs, who will be mostly objective focus and smoke focus, where acceleration and deacceleration is really beneficial, cruisers are going to be a little bit more pulled back. and they're going to have to actively dodge harder because the threat of punishment from battleship AP is greater. We take concealment, obviously, and gun reload. There isn't really a reason to ever take torpedo reloading on a cruiser. The only other skill that I would ever consider, or equipment that I ever would consider, is gun range. Gun range is really up to you on whether you see benefit over gun reload. Making use of actively dodging, though, doesn't require range as much. So if you are someone who can master the technique, you can probably forego extending the gun range and leveraging gun reload. So, just saying there. Another ship class that I really love is the Des Moines. Now, the only reason I would break my rule is because of the pairing of Enhanced Propulsion Plant with the Propulsion Mod 1. This allows the Des Moines to really play really close to the island and be really annoying. I mean, like, really, really annoying. But even then, you can still take steering gear mod 1 and it'll work very well coupled with this because that also enhances your rudder shift. So just keep that in mind, that if you can enhance something highly impact like radar, do it. If you can't and you're more stationary like a Petro or a Stalingrad, maybe enhance the lower chance of flood and fire in that spot, but you also have radar there too, so it's kind of up to you what you value more. For the consumable option, a lot of players will choose Hydro over Defensive AA, and yes, Defensive AA has very little use when there is not an aircraft carrier. Hydroacoustic is far more helpful for that, but Defensive AA is a great skill for countering aircraft carriers when they are about to enter your AA gun range. You want the flak burst. The flak burst is how you absolutely annihilate the carrier squadron. This is great for countering the FDR. The FDR is horrible against flak bursts, and this enhances that exact skill 300%. So, in a carrier matchup, definitely take this. In all other matchups, definitely take Hydro. If you know you're going to go up against a carrier, take defensive. If you don't know that you're going up against a carrier, or you know for a fact you're not going up against a carrier, take Hydro. Okay, let's get to the battleship. Now, the battleship is a very fun ship class for me now. I have a very high win rate versus strategy in the past, and that is primarily due to taking advantage of the incoming fire alert skill. We're going to just use the Vermont as the example here just because it's sitting here. But here is the build that I am making use of right now in most of my long-range battleships. For me, the only class in the game that has a different build is the battleship, because there's two types of battleships. There is a range battleship and a secondary battleship. There's pretty much nothing else. This is what I would take on a range battleship. Incoming fire alert, first one. Again, same active dodging mechanic, same benefit. Next up, we take vigilance, which recently was buffed to include torpedo protection percentage increase. So what that does is it enhances your torpedo protection further. This will reduce the damage that torpedoes will do to your ship if they hit the torpedo bulge section of your ship. It's a great skill, and it also tells you an earlier warning on torpedoes, and it will combo with hydroacoustic search. So the German battleships benefit even more from this skill. The next skill after that I take is Adrenaline Rush. Now, unlike the other classes, it's expected of the battleship to take damage, especially with this style of play, this active dodging. I play my battleships as tanks, first and foremost. I don't care that the enemy can see me, because I intend for them to miss. That's the whole plan. I want them to shoot at me. In fact, I want to have poor concealment, because having me be the first target versus cruisers, DDs, or whatever, or even other battleships, is more beneficial to me and the team than it could ever be to go any other type of playstyle. The next skill that I take is Emergency Repair Expert, and I do this because not only does it give you an extra charge of heal, and for the limited use damage control classes, it gives you an extra charge of damage control, but it also enhances the percentage healed from the skill. So that's very beneficial because it gives your heal more value, something that's built inherently to every single battleship in the game. Regardless of the tier, you will get a heal of some sort as a battleship. The next skill that I encourage you guys to take is Fire Prevention, and the reason is pretty simple. There's a lot of HE spammed. This is going to reduce the chance that you're lit on fire, and this is going to reduce the number of fires potentially available to 3 instead of 4. And in most instances, it actually reduces it to 1 instead of 2. So this will effectively reduce the fire that you take by 50% on average in a given battle, which is huge. Now, yes, fire is something that you can heal back up, Notser. That's true, but fire also increases your concealment, reduces your effectiveness of concealment. It's actively doing damage to your ship, and it is just screaming at people to shoot at you as well. So highly encourage, as the tank battleship, which this is what you're doing if you're listening to this video, take Fire Prevention. The next skill after that is this sort of newish skill, Improved Repair Party Readiness. Now, I love the fact that Wargaming, the UI has been updated to highlight the fact that this is active and you are actively benefiting from it. This improves the efficiency of the consumable, the heal consumable, based on the potential damage that you have received. This is great because what it does is it allows your heal cooldown to come off a cooldown faster, so you can make use of it in more rapid succession. The longer you play the game, the shorter amount of time in between heals occurs. And this is great too because along with incoming fire alert, which is going to increase your potential damage, this will leverage that enhanced further. I've been in games where my heal has gotten down to 55 seconds because I have absorbed so much potential damage. I am able to then convert that back into a rapid heal. I really love this skill, and I highly encourage you to take it as well. Now, the other skill that you might notice is Focus Fire Training. Now, this is great for a number of reasons now. First, the priority sector AA damage increase, 25%, is pretty outstanding because percent damage increase for AA damage is the most impactful benefit that you can get in the game. But notice it also enhances the airstrike armament reload time, which you can make use of in hunting submarines, getting an early warning if the enemy DD or cruiser that's behind the island that isn't spotted leaves their AA turned on. You can see the AA burst going on, and that will tell you roughly that there is someone there. Now, they could turn their AA off preemptively because they can see the warning that it is coming, and that would be a counterplay to your play, but it still remains true that this allows you to leverage it more frequently. It gives you another flak burst, which is very helpful. And also, the ASW airstrike can be used to absorb the fighter consumable that carriers use, that they place in the world. And many times for the battleship, they will place it in such a way that is outside of your AA gun range, but inside of your air detection bubble. You can very easily, on most battleships, place the airstrike to fully absorb the fighter. Now, I don't know if Wargaming intended this to work this way. I just want to highlight that that is how it is working currently, and if you are a battleship player, I highly encourage you make use of this, because this is going to help you a bunch to try and knock out that free spotting that the carrier so elegantly gets to do against you and all the other battleships. The final skill that I recommend is preventative maintenance. Now, it's not recommended in this, and for most of the battleships it's not. I don't know why. It prevents your main battery from being incapacitated, or your steering, or your engine, and for like German battle cruisers, your torpedo tubes. But the real benefit here is the main battery incapacitation. By reducing the chances that your main battery will be incapacitated, it increases the chance that you are able to return fire and counter the enemy. And one of the best ways to reduce the damage that you are taking is to inflict damage on them, because you are forcing them to have to angle or adjust their play to not take quite as much damage from your return fire. And it's hard to do that if your guns are incapacitated. Now, we're going to go over to the secondary battleship, because the secondary battleship is similarly built, but there are concessions that must be made in order to play secondary. Again, incoming fire alert. Again, vigilance. Again, adrenaline rush. However, before you take adrenaline rush, if you want to leverage your secondary battleship and it's a high tier, I would encourage you to take the range increase and the range accuracy increase. Since Wargaming buffed this, it is absolutely fantastic, because what it will do is over time increase the accuracy of your secondaries. And this will be displayed in the UI in 10.9, so that you will be able to very easily see the benefit that you're getting. It also enhances the secondary battery reload time, and there is a 10% base dispersion. And yeah, it's not as good as the upfront base passive that it used to be, but after 15 seconds, it becomes as good, and it gets even better over time as your secondaries are continuously firing on the target. It does require that you select the target by grabbing your cursor and clicking on them with your left control, but once you've done that, you get full benefit from this. And then the other skills, emergency repair, obviously the same rules apply. Fire prevention, the same rules apply. Adrenaline rush, the same rules apply. I am foregoing improved repair party readiness, focus fire training, and preventative maintenance so that I can go a secondary build. I feel like if you are playing a secondary battleship, these are worth dropping those skills for. Now, let's just take a look at the equipment real quick. This is a little bit different than probably what you're used to. Obviously, main armament mod 1 is great for preventing your gun from being incapacitated. Again, a very important trait. It improves the repair party of those guns if they do get incapacitated. It also increases the hit point pool on the guns as well. So you can use those actively in combat, and you will end up doing that if you actively dodge. Probably 80% of the time, when you actively dodge, if you do it right, one of your two front guns will invariably take shell fire, and if it's taking constant shell fire, you want to try and shore it up, and this is a great skill for that. Honestly, there's really nothing else that's worth taking at all, period. There really isn't. It's just not as good as this one for battleships. For slot 2, damage control system mod 1, there really is no other choice because you are so slow. There will be a lot of HE fired at you, and even if you're actively dodging, something's going to land. You want to reduce the chances of being lit up or flooding. Slot 3, for a lot of battleships like the Yamato, you want to go accuracy. But not every battleship line gets accuracy. If you are an American battleship, you don't get aiming system mod 1. If you're a secondary battleship, you want to take secondary battery mod 1, like I did in my GK. For obvious reasons, because you want to make your secondaries better. For the Americans, and maybe even specifically the Vermont, I would encourage you to take artillery plotting room mod 1, because it's going to enhance the gun range that you can use to fire your guns. And for the Vermont and the slow American battleships, this will allow you to reach out to players at a greater distance. You can place yourself safer in the back, and that will allow you to be more effective even if the side of the flank that you're on, the enemies completely collapse and you have to transition to the other side of the map. You will be able to engage the enemy at longer range and stay effective even if you're nowhere near the battle. I love Artillery Plotting Room Mod 1 for American battleships. I take Steering Gears Mod 1 in slot 4. And you might be going, why not Damage Control System Mod 2? Damage Control System Mod 2 is only beneficial if you are taking fire or flood. If neither of those dots are on your ship, it is completely useless. It discourages you from using your damage control party in very obvious situations where you wouldn't have any other punishment available. Instead, I take steering gear. It allows me to actively dodge easier because what it will do is the reaction time from when incoming fire alert occurs, it allows me to reach my full rudder potential faster. So I will get a greater degree of angle, which will assist in slowing down the ship momentum further, and it will make my ship harder to hit if the shell actually hits because the angle will be steeper. I would not encourage you to take Airstrike Mod 1. I would not encourage you to take Propulsion Mod 1. Steering is really the only choice if you want to do this active dodge. If you're not comfortable with it or you think that other people must be right, they must be, there's so many using it, that's okay. You can try and do that. But I will guarantee you, if you're using incoming fire alert and you want to make use of the active dodge, this is going to be your best bet. Slot 5, there's only one skill. Concealment System Mod 1. Torpedo Lookout is a completely garbage skill. Don't take it. Ship Consumable is pretty good, but all it does is help your consumable action time. It doesn't help you at all. Whereas Concealment, even if you are detected, enemy shells will be less accurate when they fire on your ship. So that's a really great thing. For the Americans, their accuracy is in slot 6. Definitely take that over Gun Reload. This is better than this 100% of the time for Americans. It allows for more burst alpha, and there is no penalty associated with it whatsoever. Whereas with the reload, your turret traverse is made to suffer a little bit. The other example, obviously, we'll go to Yamato. The Yamato has accuracy in slot 3. It also has accuracy in slot 6. I would strongly discourage you from taking the range increase. Now, others suggest that taking range increase increases the dispersion at the same equivalent, and that may be true. That absolutely may be true. However, I have found that it is more beneficial to have straight up better gun reload or straight up better gun accuracy over gun range. Gun range is kind of the third best option, in my opinion. So I wouldn't really take it as my first option. Another example of this, unique example, is my Montana. For the Montana and more of the fast-moving American battleships, I take the turret traverse. You don't want Artillery Plotting Room Mod 1 on the North Carolina. You're never going to hit that shot. They have the slowest shells in the game. Instead, actively dodging, you will always keep your guns on target. With this, there's no downside, but this is really only for the Montana, the Iowa, and the North Carolina that I would use that as its rule. For the consumable between spotting and fighter, take spotting. You can very easily make use of spotting by leveraging the mini-map cursor that is indicating where your aim is in relation in 3D versus the 2D of the minimap. You can also improve your gun accuracy by drawing the enemy ship's heading, which is always drawn whenever you have them selected as a target, through your crosshair indicator on the minimap. You know, basically a straight line through a circle creates this sort of, perfect aim that you, if you will, to aim in front of the enemy as they're sailing. That is the best way to leverage spotting aircraft, and if you make use of that technique, your accuracy will jump up immensely while using spotting aircraft. Again, I would highly discourage you from ever taking fighter, unless of course you have to, then you have no choice. For the aircraft carrier, it's a little bit different. So for the aircraft carrier, there are definitely skills that you take that are pretty universal. Let's go with midway because I actually have a 21 point in the midway. For the aircraft carrier, every single aircraft carrier should take air supremacy first. This restores the aircraft at a faster rate, so aircraft losses are less impactful towards you. Every single aircraft carrier should take improved engine because the speed of the squadron directly dictates the amount of damage that you can do. The closest analogy to a surface ship would be if you could increase the gun velocity of the shells coming out of the gun barrel. Because it's getting your armament faster to the enemy. Less time it takes to travel. So definitely take this. The next two skills that you should consider taking is aircraft armor. This reduces continuous AA damage taken, and survivability expert. This increases the hit point pool of the aircraft. Coupled together, they make them more resilient and they'll last longer. That is literally every single aircraft carrier in the game should take those skills first. Now, diverting from that, you pretty much have to identify if the carrier's bread and butter is their dive bombers or their torpedo bombers. If they use dive bombers more than torpedoes, you take bomber flight control. If they use torpedoes more than dive, you take the torpedo proximity fuse. So the way proximity fuse works, it negates torpedo protection by 10%. So if you're attacking the Yamato, this will reduce its torpedo protection, which I think defaults like 58% or 57%, down to 47%. However, if you are attacking a ship that does not have torpedo protection, this is a flat damage increase of 10% against DDs and cruisers that, or even submarines, not that you would ever land torpedoes on a submarine unless they're really bad, but this is a flat damage increase to those torpedoes. So you definitely want to take this if your first squadron, the best squadron that you have, is torpedoes. Other skills that I personally make use of, sight stabilization. Now, this is not as helpful on other classes as it is on different aircraft carriers have different times where their aiming becomes improved. But what this will allow you to do is spend less time aiming, 100% of the time. And for something like the Americans especially, they spend an enormous amount of time aiming in there, trying to aim. This will make it happen quicker. The other skill that I highly encourage you to take is the torpedo bomber skill, the 2-point. This reduces the arming distance. Now, the reason I say you take this, have you ever tried to drop on a target that is too close to an island? And the time that it would take you to fly all the way around and attack from the other side would be a huge waste. Sometimes, if you were taking this skill, it would enable you to attack from the island side. So this enables certain attack paths that aren't possible without it. The other skill that you may or may not consider, enhanced aircraft armor is great for preventing flak bursts. For most of the aircraft carrier, you can very easily avoid this. But for certain aircraft types, Soviet aircraft carrier and the FDR specifically, you really should take this skill. Really take it. Because flak is the direct counter to that type of gameplay. Literally, the FDR is the worst it can possibly be against flak from DDs or cruisers. It is hard to avoid with such a large squadron that you're carrying around the map. This will allow you to take a flak burst and not completely get wiped out. Because if a aircraft is wiped out by a flak burst, the squadron will shift left or right abruptly so that the middle of the squadron always remains on your cursor. This is why a lot of times if you hit one flak burst, you'll hit a second or a third and you'll just pop like a piñata. You don't want that, obviously. You want the squadron to stay alive. So for specific types, the Soviet aircraft carriers and the FDR, very much the FDR, take this skill. For the rest, you'll have like 3 points. You can take like Pyrotechnician if you're a daughter, or you could take something like a Repair Specialist coupled with the improved engine boost. If you take Repair Specialist, for example, you can completely negate someone using Defensive AA and Priority Sector against you through it while having this active. It will last the longer than the attack would take in the approach. So that's really good. There is really no reason to take the right-hand side of the carrier. It's just not good enough. They need to buff it. It just doesn't really do a good job. And then finally, we're going to take a look at the Submarine. Now, this is a brand new class, and for obvious reasons, this may or may not be completely accurate, because this may or may not be as relevant as it will be once they're fully released. But this will help players who are going against submarines right now. So, I once again take Incoming Fire Alert. This is a great skill to warn you that you are about to take damage. Now, instead of actively dodging, you should drop to operational depth, which is 24 meters. You need to do that to avoid the damage, because the damage will only occur to a submarine from gunfire if they are on the surface or at periscope depth. The next skill is Last Stand. And the reason I recommend Last Stand over Preventative Maintenance is because you won't have to use your DCP on your engine or steering gears. Your damage control party for DDs, submarines, and cruisers needs to be available to counter pinging. It needs to be. It's not a, on a battleship, if I place myself at the right distance and I react and I sail away and I cut my momentum at the last second, I can have the torpedoes just pass harmlessly past me and not even make contact. That's not the case with these classes. The DD, the cruiser, and the submarine. The homing effect is so tight and so strong, you have to use DCP in most cases. So this will allow you to not have to use it on engine or steering. If your engine or steering gets knocked out and ASW is happening, you pretty much dead. So yeah, be very careful. Now the next skill, you can either be offensive or defensive. I would probably err towards defensive first, because Watchful is a skill that is so helpful for the submarine. So what Watchful does is, if you are at operational or maximum depth, it will warn you if there is a hydroacoustic search or a surveillance radar occurring. This is very helpful, obviously, to prevent you from being detected. When you are detected, your dive capacity is used up at a greater rate. So there's two negatives to being detected. You do not want to accidentally come up into radar or hydroacoustic, because even for a split second, they can target you with ASW, or your dive capacity will be used up at such a greater rate that you won't have dive capacity for the late game, which is obviously very important if you're trying to survive and help your team. The next skill that I would encourage you to consider taking is Torpedo Aiming Master. Now, for me, Torpedo Aiming Master is interesting because this is kind of a way to encourage submarines to slow down their play. The only way that this is active is if you have 2 pings on the target already. 2 pings on the target is incredibly hard, but if you get to the point where you can do this consistently, This will increase your torpedoes that you launch after you have 2 pings on the target by 15%, which is obviously very helpful. Percentage increase is usually a really good option. And that condition is definitely tight. It's definitely something that is harder to do than not, but once you do it, it is beneficial. The other skill that I highly encourage you to consider taking, and I might even say you take this before you take any 4 points, is Sonar Man. Sonar Man increases the duration of 2 pings by 20%, but it reduces the duration of 1 ping by 10%. So it has a penalty, but it also has a plus side. This allows your double ping to last longer. A single ping is not that big of a deal. If you are unable to land a double ping, you can still send a single ping out on cooldown on a target and keep it up. Obviously, the ping lands where it intersects with the enemy ship. In order to get the double ping, you have to intersect in the same section of the ship twice in a row. If you do it a third time, it will refresh the double ping. And having it last for 36 seconds versus 20 seconds is really big, or 36 seconds versus like 25 seconds is very helpful for obvious reasons. The penalty is not that great for the benefit. So definitely encourage you to take Sonar Man. The other thing that I would highly encourage you take, especially now, is Superintendent. Superintendent is very helpful because the limited nature of submarine consumables. Now, every submarine gets hydrophone. Hydrophone is very helpful for detecting submarines. You will need to be detecting submarines who are at maximum depth or operating depth to engage them. Now, with the changes to the torpedoes being single launch, the sub versus sub gameplay is far more capable and more entertaining. And in order to leverage that further, obviously you want more uses of the hydrophone ship consumable. Depending on the type, whether you're American or German, you also get a second consumable. The Americans get enhanced rudder, so they're turning underwater and ascending and diving will be enhanced. This allows them to maneuver very quickly. It allows them to dive underwater quickly. It allows them to turn tighter if they need to avoid depth charges in an area or even underwater island, geometry. This is great for that. For the Germans, theirs is a battery, and you want to use this ideally if you are detected underwater artificially, say by another submarine. Hydrophone. Hydrophone, the only way that you can avoid hydrophone as a submarine is to go to periscope or surface depth. And if you can't go there for whatever reason, there's someone waiting on the surface or there's radar or hydro, you will be forced to be detected unless you can get distance away from the enemy submarine. But the reserve battery will suspend that for the duration, so you won't lose any dive capacity for that. And obviously not losing it is sort of like double. It's like regenerating 30 seconds worth of dive capacity. It's really a great skill. Now, for the rest of the commander skill tree, we also take Adrenaline Rush, which you're going to take damage. It's no secret, and this is going to help you with sonar cooldown, torpedo, and secondary, but there's not that many DDs that do it. And then the last skill is Liquidator. This just puts a slow dot on the enemy at a higher rate. This is great for trying to track them. Now, for the submarine equipment, I take Sonar Mod 1. This makes the sonar stay up longer and it prevents it from being incapacitated. There really isn't another valid option to take. Yeah, main armament keeps the torpedoes from being incapacitated, but it doesn't really help you with sonar, and sonar is something that's beneficial to engaging the enemy. Engine room protection I use to prevent incapacitation, but you will take fires and floods if you are shot at on the surface or you take a torpedo underwater, so that's also a valid option as well. I just don't want to lose any of my maneuvering, because the maneuvering is how you stay alive. For slot 3, I choose the sonar ping velocity. This allows you to land the double ping at a easier and higher rate. The other options, dive capacity depletion when detected. Well, if you aren't detected, you don't get any benefit from this. And then the torpedo speed, yeah, it can go up and faster by 5%. And the torpedo tube traversal speed is also, you don't really have much torpedo tube traversal. The incapacitation is nice, but for my money, landing the double ping enhances your damage greater than torpedo speed could ever enhance you. For slot 4, we take the Submarine Steering Gears Mod 2. This allows you to maneuver at a greater rate underwater. I know Propulsion Mod 1 is going to be attractive for people to stay at a sniper and stay at range and go back and forth, but it is just not as beneficial as maneuvering, diving, and changing your positioning. This does it all, so highly encourage it. Slot 5, you can't take concealment, so the next best thing is maneuvering. Torpedo lookout is garbage. Ship consumable is beneficial, although you don't have a lot of consumables to benefit from. So for my money, this is better to maintain a more aggressive playstyle and to obviously maneuver at a greater rate. Slot 6, you have two options: improving your dive capacity or improving your torpedo reload. Now, improving your torpedo reload is obviously beneficial for damage output, but improving your dive capacity allows you to perform every action at a greater rate and stay safer longer. I've tried both. Dive capacity is far more beneficial. It just opens up a lot more opportunities. I hope that this has been helpful to all of you watching. I'm sure that the video is long at this point, but overall, this is how I approach the game. It works very, very well. Hopefully the B-reel subbed in got the point across as well. And thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the content, please make sure you subscribe to my channel. I also stream at twitch.tv/Notser. My North American recruit is on the screen as well. Thank you again, and I hope you have a wonderful day.